My name is Ionel Petrescu, and I am a sergeant in the Romanian Army, stationed near the edge of the vast Danube Delta. These days, the air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth and the murmur of uncertain whispers among my men. October has brought more than just the chill of autumn to northern Romania. It has stirred the winds of a conflict that seems to inch closer each day from across the Ukrainian border. In the heart of one of Europe's last true wild ecosystems, our military base feels increasingly isolated. The Delta, with its sprawling marshlands and dense reed beds, has always been a place of natural solitude. But now, it stands as a silent witness to the tense atmosphere brewing around us. News of skirmishes and unexplained incidents along the border reaches us with unsettling frequency, disrupting our routines and feeding the growing anxiety among the troops. Today, like many others, began with the routine check of equipment and the distribution of assignments. Yet, something was different. The colonel, a stern figure who rarely shows concern, called us into an urgent briefing. His voice was grave as he outlined the reports of mysterious attacks nearby, incidents that didn't fit the usual skirmishes with Ukrainian or Russian forces. My heart sank. Combat is a reality for any soldier, yet the uncertainty of these reports whispered of a different kind of dread. As we geared up and ventured toward the border, the landscape around us shifted. The farther we moved from our base, the more the marshes gave way to the dark, dense forests that border the delta. These woods are ancient and thick with shadows, and today they felt eerily oppressive, as if hiding secrets in their mist-covered undergrowth. The weight of my rifle did little to comfort me. I've always believed in the duty to defend and protect, but today, doubt gnawed at me. Was I really meant to be a soldier in this type of conflict? One where the lines of battle are blurred not just by politics, but by something unspoken and chilling that even the bravest of us can't shake off? This internal conflict troubled me deeply as we marched into the unknown, the crunch of our boots on the forest floor sounding like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation that none of us truly understood. The deeper we ventured into the forest, the more palpable the sense of dread became. Our unit moved in a tight formation, eyes darting to every rustle and snap underfoot. The colonel had briefed us on potential hostilities, yet nothing could have prepared us for what we encountered. As we approached a clearing, the first sign of something amiss was the silence, an oppressive, heavy quiet that seemed unnatural for such a vibrant ecosystem. Then we saw them, the bodies of soldiers from an unknown unit, grotesquely wrapped in what appeared to be thick, silky cocoons, strung between trees like macabre ornaments. My stomach churned at the sight, the reality of our situation sinking in with horrific clarity. We spread out, weapons at the ready, searching for any sign of the enemy. It was Private Vasile who first spotted them, shadowy figures moving with alarming speed among the trees. "Contact left," he shouted, just as the shapes burst into the open. They weren't human. These creatures, resembling grotesque spiders, skittered toward us with terrifying agility. Their eyes glinted in the dim light, and as they moved closer, a paralyzing fear gripped me. The firefight was chaotic. Bullets seemed to slow them, but not enough. I fired round after round, yet my mind screamed that this was wrong. These were not soldiers. This was not a war. It was a nightmare. Amid the gunshots and cries of my comrades, I felt a deep, gnawing fear that this was beyond our understanding. In the heat of battle, a figure darted out from behind a tree, a woman in a different uniform, shouting in accented Romanian, "Cease fire." They're attracted to noise. It was Katerina Moros, a Ukrainian lieutenant. Her sudden appearance amidst the chaos was startling, yet her knowledge about these creatures was our first slim hope. Grudgingly, we lowered our weapons, backing slowly away from the advancing monsters. As we regrouped, the reality of our situation began to settle. These creatures, whatever they were, had claimed this part of the forest as their own. We were intruders here, and our standard combat training was useless against such foes. That night, we found an old bunker, an underground remnant of a past war, and it became our sanctuary. There, surrounded by the cold concrete that muffled the sounds of the forest above, we planned our next move, the weight of our survival pressing heavily upon us. Huddled in the damp, cold bunker, the silence of the underground was a stark contrast to the chaos of the forest above. As we caught our breath, Katerina Moros, the Ukrainian lieutenant, shared her own grim experiences with the creatures. She spoke of her platoon, wiped out in an ambush similar to what we had just endured. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the toll it had taken. Beside her, Mikhail Volkov, a young Russian private we had found disoriented near the edge of the forest, recounted his harrowing escape from the creatures. He spoke of his faith, how it guided him in the darkest moments, his Russian accent thickening with emotion. Here we were, three soldiers from nations fraught with tension, bound together by a common enemy unlike any we had known. The bunker became our temporary refuge and a war room of sorts. Over a dimly lit map, we pieced together what little we knew about the creatures and strategized. Our usual tactics were useless. This was a new kind of warfare. Katerina suggested that fire might deter the creatures, an idea that sparked a flicker of hope among us. We began crafting makeshift torches and firebombs from supplies scrounged from the bunker. As we planned, a bond formed among us, forged in the fires of survival. We shared stories of our lives beyond the battlefield, of families waiting and worlds apart from the horrors of the forest. Katerina spoke of her life in Kiev, of streets filled with music and laughter, now overshadowed by the specter of war. Mikhail reminisced about his village's quiet winters, his tales punctuated by the distant howls of the creatures that prowled above. Our alliance was a fragile thing, but it held. Together, we devised a plan to break through the forest's heart where the creatures seemed most concentrated. It was a desperate plan, but it was all we had. As dawn approached, we prepared to leave the safety of the bunker. Our newfound unity was our strength, and our shared fear our motivation. Stepping out into the cold, early light, we carried our makeshift weapons and a shared determination. The forest awaited, silent and foreboding. But we were no longer just soldiers from conflicting armies. We were survivors, allies in a battle against a common, monstrous foe. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the dense canopy, the forest seemed to hold its breath. We advanced slowly, our homemade torches casting eerie shadows among the twisted trees. The plan was simple yet fraught with peril. Reach the heart of the forest where the creatures were thickest, use fire to create a path, and escape to the open fields beyond. The silence was unnerving. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs sent shivers down my spine. We moved as quietly as possible, but the forest seemed to respond to our presence, the atmosphere growing tenser with each step. Then, without warning, they attacked. Swarms of the spider creatures erupted from the underbrush, their eerie screeches piercing the morning air. Katerina was the first to react, hurling a firebomb into the midst of the advancing horde. The explosion sent flames dancing wildly, scattering the creatures and casting an infernal light over their twisted forms. Encouraged, we pressed our advantage, setting ablaze patches of undergrowth to bar their paths and clear our way. The climax of our escape came as we neared a particularly dense thicket, the sounds of countless creatures converging on us. There, in the shadowy depths, loomed a spider of monstrous size, its eyes glowing malevolently in the firelight. My heart pounded as it moved towards us, its massive legs causing the ground to tremble. In that moment, fueled by sheer desperation, I seized a flaming branch and charged. The creature reared up as I approached, exposing its ghastly maw. With a primal yell, I thrust the torch forward, plunging it deep into the creature's mouth. The beast writhed and screeched, its movements becoming erratic as the flames consumed it. Overcome by the heat and the fumes, I staggered back, nearly collapsing, but Katerina grabbed my arm, pulling me to safety. Exhausted and singed, we broke through the last of the thickets to find ourselves at the edge of a vast clearing. The sun, now fully risen, bathed us in warm light, a stark contrast to the dark horrors behind us. As we paused, catching our breath, the realization that we had survived against unimaginable odds began to sink in. We didn't speak much as we made our way out of the forest, the sounds of battle fading behind us. There was a sense of relief, but also of profound change. We had faced death together and come out alive, bound by a shared ordeal that transcended the borders drawn by men. As we emerged into the open, the fresh breeze seemed to promise a new beginning, a faint hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find peace after all the horrors we'd witnessed.